On May 11th, the North Brunswick Senior Center and the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services held its 15th annual Senior Conference and Health Fair, a day just for seniors. Senior Center Activities Coordinator Jessica Zink describes the various activities at the conference.
All different specialty vendors focusing on senior services and programs that are available. We also have different health screenings. We have blood pressure offered, blood glucose screenings, also cholesterol checks, as well as a massage and facial table. We just try to have a lot of different opportunities for the seniors to learn about programs and services that are available to them throughout the area. And we have a nice turnout. We have over 70 senior citizens as well as 15 local vendors joining us for the day. We do a nice healthy breakfast and lunch, and we really enjoy this program. It's been very well received, 15 years and counting.
During the conference, screenings were provided by St. Peter's Community Mobile Health Unit and JFK Medical Center. The topic of bullying in older adults was addressed during the keynote presentation. The following is the presentation in its entirety.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming. This is a fantastic turnout. I'm very excited. Our keynote speakers, I saw them at a county service providers meeting, and I went up to Marianne right after, and I said, I need you to come to the senior center. You guys did such a great job. They're talking about bullying and older adults. And I'm going to let them get into it. The topic is so dynamic. Marianne Ross is the coordinator of training and resources at COPSA, and Victor Miranda is the service coordinator of HUD Housing in Spotswood, and they both gave a really great a great presentation. So if you guys could just please give them your undivided attention, I'd really appreciate that and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. You put us under a lot of pressure, too. And we don't perform, though. We don't sing, we don't dance. All we do is we talk.
I do.
He does. Okay. This is a really hot topic, and actually we want to hear from you, your opinions and your ideas and your thoughts about what we're going to be saying and what we're going to be telling you. And it's important because some of what you tell me we might bring to other places and bring it up for discussion and add it into our talks. So we do want to hear from you. We're going to go through the presentation and then we're going to open it to questions, and we're going to ask you questions and you can ask us questions. Does that sound good? Yes. Okay, good. All right. Well, I am a writer and a researcher and a social worker at Rutgers. But 40 years ago, I was the new kid on the bus. And let me tell you, I was bullied. I ran afoul of Mary Beth. And Mary Beth was a popular kid. She was a bossy kid. So every night before I went to bed, I would say, God, please let Mary Beth be out sick tomorrow. And every day when I was getting ready to go on the bus, I would worry about where I was going to sit, who I was going to sit next to, what people were going to say. It was a really terrible experience for me. And about 2 years ago, I started doing research on a book about violence in the family life cycle. And I learned a lot about bullying in schools. I learned a lot about what they're doing now to prevent bullying in schools. When I was a kid, I didn't tell anybody. It was just something that happened, and it was just like a rite of passage. People went through that, and they suffered in silence. But now we know more about that. I learned about bullying in the workplace. But there was nothing about bullying in older adults. Now, about a year ago, some research started being done about bullying and seniors. So when I started seeing that research and learning about that topic, I found out as much as I could, and that's why I'm here, to share it with you. Because I think being informed and being educated is very important when it comes to issues that affect our lives. Now Victor is the real expert on bullying. Victor works at a senior housing. And he's seen all kinds of bullying, and he's come up with all kinds of solutions for bullying. Plus, Victor is the driving force behind 2 videos that are being made about seniors and bullying. So, Victor's going to start out and he's going to tell you all about what bullying is.
Thanks, Marianne. Thank you. Marianne forgot to mention, she and I worked together at Rutgers at UMD&J for over 10 years, and the irony of us working together right now is that I used to bully her all the time.
He did. Doesn't he look like a bully?
So it's see, now that's stereotyping. Okay, so let's talk about first what bullying is, okay? Because a lot of times, different behaviors that can be witnessed, someone may think are bullying and it may not be, it may just be agitated behavior, okay? So the first thing is, bullying acts are directed at someone, okay? Either an individual or a group. It's repeated and systematic harassment or attacks on others, okay? So basically, like Marianne's story, every night she went to bed worrying about the next morning, was this girl going to do something on the bus, okay? It's that type of thing. Now, instances, when we're talking about seniors, instances of bullying tend to take place more frequently where people congregate, okay? So, senior centers, perfect example, okay? Anybody ever witnessed an incident at bingo? I know I have more than once, okay? And it can be something as simple as, no, you can't have that chair. But that's about, there you go, so I got your attention, okay? But if that's a continuous thing, it crosses over into being bullying. So it's, no, you can't have this chair, and you can't have that chair, and you can't have any of these chairs because I'm saving them for people who are never going to show up, but I don't want you sitting here, okay? So what the bully does is they want to make the public domain their own, okay? And when you really start to think about it, you probably see more of it than you think, okay? It just, and when you saw it, it didn't feel right. Something just felt off about it. But if you were a bystander, if you were a witness, and it was happening to someone else, you just sort of shrugged that feeling off and went on about your thing, and you knew right away, I'm going to avoid that person, okay? But your gut instinct told you that there was something not right about that, okay? So there are different types of bullying that take place. First one, you got social. So that's refusing to let a person join the group, okay? You know, happens all the time. In senior housing, senior centers, you know, you have tenant associations and things like that, and they get together and do stuff, but, you know, no, we don't want Kathleen coming on this trip, so there's no more seats on the bus. You know, that type of thing. It becomes that because you're ostracizing someone for no reason, okay? It can be verbal, so it can be, you know, aggressive language directed at an individual, or it can be what most of us would probably label as gossiping. Okay, but that gossiping can cross over into bullying when enough people are repeating the same thing, or when the things that are being said become kind of vicious, okay? And it can get nasty, okay? Right? You're shaking your head, so I'm sure you got stories for me at the end. You know, so these, we need to identify these things. Now, sometimes, and I've seen this too, it can cross over into physical bullying. Okay, and it, you know, when I've seen that, I'm not sure how to react. Okay, I'm still not sure how to react because unfortunately sometimes I still see it. Okay, so I'll just paint a picture for you. You know, somebody's having a little trouble getting on the bus, and they've got their shopping bags, and they're having difficulty. Okay, we all do at a certain point. It takes me a few minutes to get up out of bed. Okay, so the person behind them becomes impatient and literally puts their hands on them and starts to shove them, push them. Now that's even worse when they're trying to get off the bus. I've seen someone not intending necessarily to shove them off the bus onto the ground, but that was the end result because they put their hands on them and they gave them a little shove to hurry them along, okay? Which resulted in injury. Now that's, you know, that's a serious matter, okay? Some people might laugh that off, but it's not a laughable matter. The last one is intimidation. Now this can happen on so many different levels and in so many different ways. It can be as simple as two people coming in opposite directions down a hallway, and maybe the one person sort of steps to the middle of the hallway to force you against the wall as they walk by. Okay, that type of thing. And it just so happens it's that same person that you had words with at bingo 2 nights ago. Okay, you know, you're being singled out. It's an act, and you'll find yourself changing the way you do things. Okay, I've seen instances where a person, let's just use senior housing because that's where the bulk of my experiences are, will go to the opposite end of the building and take the elevator down and go out that door to completely avoid the person they don't like that bullies them that lives at this end of the building. So they'll go 2/3 of the way out of their way just to avoid an individual. Okay? So these are the types of things that we want to talk about. All right? That's actually, Mary Ann brought up a good point. One last one. This may not happen as frequently, but it does happen. It falls under the intimidation, but pressuring to borrow money or to give money, and it really kind of mimics the whole when we were kids and the bully with the lunch money thing, okay? It's kind of the same thing. And again, a lot of people hear it and they laugh it off because we're not talking about kids, we're talking about grown-ups, okay? But it still happens. And to that individual, you know, it may not necessarily be that they have you in the corner and say, give me your money, okay, but they, you know, will pressure you and make you feel horrible if you don't, okay? And if you don't, now they'll go tell everybody else what a terrible person you are, okay? That's bullying, period, okay? Just, you're allowed to say no, okay? That's right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about who the victims are.
When we think about bullying, we think usually about senior to senior bullying when we're talking about older adults and bullying. But it can be senior to a family member of another senior. Okay? And how that happens is his mother is in a senior center and all of a sudden they're going to visit their mother in senior housing and they hear, you know, your mother hasn't changed her hair or washed her hair in 2 weeks. Can you do something about that, please? Now that's a very mean thing. That's meant to publicly humiliate the person. Or, you know, your mother's not following the rules in this building. There are rules here, and if she doesn't follow them, she's going to get kicked out. We're going to call the police. Could be anything, you know. So sometimes that happens, and it happens to family members, or it can happen to, let's say, an aide or someone who comes to visit the person or helps the person. And that makes everyone feel very uncomfortable. That makes the family feel like, why do I have mom in this place? Why is someone treating her like that? Okay? The other thing that happens is that some seniors will try to intimidate the staff. You know, my son is a lawyer, and he said that if I want to go on this trip, you're not allowed to tell me I can't. Okay? Or I'm going to talk to the mayor. I'm going to the mayor, and I'm going to the city council, and I'm going to find out what's going on here, and I'm going to report you. Or I know that you were at a bar the other night. I heard you were at a restaurant and you were at the bar having a drink with some man. Now the man might have been the woman's husband.
That happened once.
But it doesn't matter. It's trying to control the situation, trying to intimidate. So we see it in a lot of different ways. We see bullying happening between different people and different people in different types of relationships. Okay, now, who gets bullied? All right? Like me, the new kid on the block often gets bullied. All right? You all come to senior centers, and I'm sure that this is a very nice environment. But I do hear about people saying that going to a senior center can be very intimidating. They don't know who to sit with, there's different groups, there's different cliques. It's a little bit like being in high school again, all right? And it makes it really tough on people, especially if they're not really sure of themselves or feeling good about themselves. So people who are new tend to get bullied. People who have memory problems, whether or not it's a dementia, but if someone has a memory problem, very often people will make fun of them, they don't want them around. They try to insult them, and they'll say, oh, you know, we've heard that story 4 times already. She's always talking about that. Or someone who is a little different. Could be a lady who flirts with the men. All right? Now that's becoming a target of gossip right there, right?
People in the back are pointing.
We don't like that, do we, girls? No. But the truth is that anyone who is a little different, who does different things, has different interests, you know, sometimes it's someone who's a little annoying. Someone who will talk and talk and talk and talk and never shut up. And then everybody tries to avoid them. All right? So you have the right to sit with people you like, and you have the right to be around people and not be around people you don't like. But it doesn't mean that that person can't be included in different activities. And when we try to exclude them from different activities. If we have someone who's mentally ill, all right? If we have someone who maybe has been homeless, maybe has had some problems, that information goes around really fast, and that person can easily become the target of gossip and become the target of being isolated. And the problem with this is that when I did that research on people in the workplace who are being bullied, one of the things that they suggest is that if you're being bullied at work, they give you some suggestions to deal with it, but then they say, make sure you're around supportive, compassionate people who care about you the rest of the time. Now the problem is, if most of those people are gone, or if they've moved away, and if they're not around, people don't necessarily have a broad social network anymore, okay? And so they don't have people who are going to back them up. Their kids don't want to hear it, or if they do want to hear it, or maybe they're like me. If you've been bullied, you're embarrassed about being bullied, right? Everybody, I mean, I was embarrassed. I wouldn't want anyone to know. So these kind of people are more prone to being bullied. And we have to look out for them. And think about it in your own situations. I don't know whether you come here, obviously, but maybe you go to senior housing or you see it somewhere else. People who are different, people who are having some kind of a problem, all of those people are more prone to be bullied. So you have to think about it and maybe be a little more protective and nice to them. Because in some ways, we're all in the same boat.
Okay, on that note, I want to talk a little bit about why people bully. Why bullies do the things they do. Okay? First thing, as far as we're concerned, people feel empowered by controlling, threatening, and causing conflict. Okay? That's very true at any age, all right? You know, work situations, anything. If you can cause a tiff between these two and just sit back there and watch the fireworks, it's kind of empowering, okay? It's almost human nature to some degree because it gives you control over something, okay? And we all want to be in control, for the most part. Bullies usually lack empathy towards others, okay? They really don't care how what they just did made you feel. Not thinking about that, it's all about them, okay? And lifting themselves up. Now, depending on the circumstance, okay, again, from the perspective of senior housing, just real quick, show of hands, how many people live in some sort of senior housing in here? Everybody lives in their own home, or, yeah? Okay. Well, I don't want to scare you with senior housing, because this happens everywhere, okay? But a lot of times, when you're talking about someone moving from their own home, selling their home, moving into senior housing and apartments, in a way, a lot of times, it's them losing a certain degree of autonomy, okay? What I mean by that is, a lot of times the way it'll play itself out is, you know, the adult children will say, listen, I can't keep coming over here mowing the lawn and fixing the roof and doing this and blah, blah, blah. It's time for you to sell the house. It's too much, okay? So they're not telling you what to do, but it's not necessarily what you would want, okay? So you start losing a little bit, just a little bit of that autonomy, that decision making, okay? So now you go to this place. Oh, and by the way, this is always the closer. Okay, by the way, it's right down the street from me, so I'll be over there every night for dinner. Never happens. So, just so you know. So you do it. seems like a good idea. Yeah, I don't have to worry about taking care of anything. There's maintenance staff, they take care of everything. Nice, and the apartment's nice, I looked at it. You know, and it's cheap. Okay, great. So you do it. Then you get into these situations. Now you're that new kid on the block, okay? If you're lucky enough that it's near where you lived, so maybe you know a couple of people in the building, you can sort of align yourself with them, then you might be okay. But you know, there's going to be those situations where you're going to want to socialize. So you go out. Remember what I said earlier? These things always happen where people congregate. Okay, so bingo, trip, whatever the situation, Atlantic City. Okay, you're going to be in that situation, and that's where you're going to come across those things. And what happens for somebody who's really lost a lot of that autonomy, again, kids kind of really made them do it and move into this thing, they want to try to get some of that power back. And the way they may try to do that is by controlling others. Okay? My kids are controlling me, so I'm going to control who I can. I'm going to control you guys because these two are controlling me. Okay? Trying to bring themselves back to the level where they feel good about themselves. And the victims, unfortunately, get the brunt of that. Okay? It's a trickle-down effect. All right? Now, let's talk about the impact of bullying. Okay? First, from the perspective of the victim. Okay? The person who's being bullied or has been bullied. Okay? Many times they will go into a depression. Okay? Understandably so. They'll become reclusive. They'll stop doing things, social activities, stop talking to family, stop talking to everybody, because this person just made them feel so bad about themselves, particularly with the verbal abuse, okay, with the gossip, with the, the things being said. That person becomes ostracized the minute they step outside their domain and they're in public, so they stay in there, okay? And families don't always pick up on that right away. Okay, so this kind of thing can go on if nobody's paying attention for a while. That's why it's important to have a social network, okay? Because hopefully somebody, I know my friends, if they don't hear from me, if I don't post on social media for 2 days, my phone is blowing up and everyone's like, are you okay? You're in the hospital? No, I'm just tired. Slept for 2 days, whatever. But you want people around you that will say, that will pick up on those things and say, was something wrong. We had a situation with somebody that exactly that happened to, and she wouldn't say anything to her daughter. We suspected something was happening. She wouldn't say anything to her daughter, and her daughter was very proactive about it. Kept asking her. She just said, no, nothing, I just don't feel well, that's the only thing. I don't feel well. Well, her daughter ended up getting together with her friends, with mom's friends. And she figured out from talking to them that there was somebody who was being very aggressive and bullying towards her mom. So the way they chose to handle it, because at that point it's just words and it's very hard for building management to do anything about that. There's no actual threats taking place. It's more of this implied intimidation type of thing. But it's enough that this person doesn't want to be anywhere in the same room with that individual, okay, out of fear. So she got together with the friends and said, you need to be with mom everywhere she goes. Everyone stick together, strength in numbers. This person's not going to bother any of you if you're all together, okay? They tried it and it worked, all right? Now, unfortunately, that person just went on and picked somebody else to pick up, but we know that's what happens, okay? But the person who was being bullied and that group now stuck together and that person moved on, okay? So that's one solution. What about the bystanders, the witnesses? Anybody in here ever been sitting and watching that happen? You ever seen it? Yeah, you've seen plenty. It can have a really, really funny effect on the person who sees it, because after the fact, they start to feel very guilty. You always think about, you ever have an argument with somebody and you lose the argument and an hour later you think of the perfect thing you should have said? Same thing, okay? It happens every day to me. Same thing, okay? So you see this thing happening and you don't do anything, and then it goes on. And then you start thinking to yourself, I should have done this, I should have done that. You start second guessing yourself, you feel guilty. Sometimes the bystanders end up, without even meaning to, helping the bully. Okay? They end up helping the bully, because then they end up going around and repeating whatever that person was saying about that person. Yeah. And you don't even realize it's happening. But the next thing you know, it spreads. Like, you know, you ever play that, what is the whisper game, that telephone game? You tell a secret, by the time it gets back around, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
That's what happens, okay? Except we're talking about somebody's life. So it's a little bit more serious than that, okay? So that's how the bystander can be affected, okay? A lot of times the bystander, if that bully's in the room and they never actually got bullied, well, they see what that person's capable of doing, so they don't want to deal with it either. So now you got 10 people who won't show up for bingo because of one person. Okay? That happens all the time. The victim's family. Now this too. So, you know, mom starts getting shut in and she won't come out for things and she won't participate in anything, and you can just tell her mood is completely different. A lot of times the adult will call the child and, you know, say, I don't want to be here anymore, I need to move in with you, I need to get out of here, I need to, which, I mean, that's understandable. You know, they just want to get away from that person, that situation, and how it's making them feel. So it ends up being a lot of stress on the family because they'll say those things but won't tell them why. Because they're afraid the family's going to come in and make it worse. You know, my daughter's going to come in here and yell at this guy, but then she's going to leave and I got to deal with him again, right? That's the dilemma, okay? So it affects everybody across the board, not just the victim.
One of the things that happens with bystanders too, I think, is that very often people just feel like it's none of my business, right? It's not my business, I'm going to stay out of it. Plus, if they say something or do something, they're very likely to end up being attacked also. So it puts you in an uncomfortable position. It also raises anxiety because you don't know if you're going to be the next person. If they're getting away with that with this person, what's going to happen? And victims very often do tend to isolate themselves. Like Victor has told me stories about people who don't want to go to the laundry room. They put off doing their laundry and their wash because they're afraid to go down there. And they also, if they tend to become depressed and more isolated. So it's overall a very bad experience for them. But what we would like to do, because we only have a few more minutes left, and we like to be on time, we'd like to hear from you about what you think about bullying. Have you guys ever seen any examples of bullying? Is anybody brave enough to speak up and tell us? Well, what do you think can be done? Do you think there's anything that can be done about bullying?
Oh, sure.
What do you think? Okay, I'm going to give you the mic. All right, everybody quiet. Go ahead.
I think that you can, if you see it, it's hard to interact with it maybe at the time, but you can come over to that person later and talk to them and make a friend, or make at least somewhat of a reaching out to that person.
To the person who's been victimized?
Victimized, yeah.
Okay.
For the person who's been victimized, you know what I mean? You can sympathize with them. It might not be the time that you see the bullying going on because you don't want the conflict of having to put your
Throw
2
yourself-
cents in at
right.
that particular time. But I think you can go to them later, the victim, and you know, and make a friend.
Very good. Now, what do you guys, what do you all think about that? That sounds like a good idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay, any other ideas? Any other ideas on how to deal with bullying anywhere in the community?
How would you, if it happened to you, how would you deal with it?
Okay, back there we have a hand up.
But I have experienced over the years, because of my lack of hearing, being deaf on one ear and not having the best of hearing on the right ear,
Yeah.
I feel some people shy away. But then again, it could be me. I don't know.
What is it about you that they think that you think that they may?
I guess the way I either express myself or say something, I don't mean to intentionally insult someone, but you know, if I think I'm insulting someone, I'll apologize right away. But anyone with a severe hearing condition would understand what and how I'm going through this.
Well, I think not hearing is isolating. It's very isolating. I have trouble hearing too. And a lot of times people will whisper things to me and I can only say what so many times, right? What'd you say? What'd you say? Or they think I can read their lips for some reason and I can't. I have no idea. So then I just be quiet. Or I smile when it sounds like I should be smiling. Or I agree. And then people say, you do? And I'm like, oh, what would I just agree with? But what I would say to you is, what about, you probably have some good friends over the years, right? Okay. And those are the people that you need to focus on for support. I'm not saying that, I'm saying that if you're feeling like you might be isolated, you're apologizing, that's good. And you're saying your hearing might be interfering with things, but you still have these other people that you could rely on for support. And that's what you need to focus on. You know, you're welcome. Anybody else? What can we do about bullying? All right, what do you think Jessica should do? Let's put Jessica on the spot here. What do you think management can do about bullying?
Well, I think, we do our best because we do have a very wide variety of people who come here for activities. And I think the one thing that we try to do is we try to, at least Carol and I have done this before, is there a new person, especially if they're joining the clubs here are difficult. And so we try to talk to Blanche, who's the president of the North Brunswick Club, and we try to get her to bring them in and invite people into the club. And as long as everyone kind of has a partner or a buddy, I think everyone's in a good place. If you walk into a room full of people and you don't know anybody, well, it is really difficult. But if you have somebody, you say, hey, look, this person's new, they want to play bingo today, do you think that you can sit with them? And then also the exercise programs. People come in, and I think that's a really great group of people. You guys welcome everybody in, you show everybody the moves, and I think it goes really well. Our teachers and our other people have really helped with that.
And you have a code of conduct here, don't you?
We do. It's the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, that's, and unfortunately, in a lot of instances, they do have to implement and enforce some sort of code of conduct in writing, and it's usually as a result of things that take place. I just wanted to summarize one thing, which is we're all unique, okay? Everybody's different, and when we talk about earlier, who the likely victims are of bullying, it's usually the people who stand out a little bit more than everyone else. Maybe have a little bit less of a filter than everyone else. So sometimes they say things that people don't want to hear, okay? As opposed to keeping it to themselves, and that sort of puts them out there, okay? A little bit more than the rest of us who'd like to fly below the radar, okay? But the fact is that we're all unique, and the biggest way to try to prevent these types of instances from happening and try to keep it to a minimum is to remember that, okay? And maybe to remind others of that, that we all are different, and that, we all sort of live by our own script, okay? And it may not necessarily be the script that you live by. So, tolerance is the biggest thing, okay? Did you have a?
Yes, I have one comment to make. We had some people here. We had a few people that came to the center that were, I don't know if they came from a shelter or if they had mental problems. And people were, to me, extremely horrible. And I felt as if, I had to speak to a couple of people and say, they're humans just like we are. And they're gone. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if management just felt that everybody was not tolerant and just...
Maybe it was only a temporary thing to begin with.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But it's something that I think everyone should be aware of, that people who are less well off
Okay, I like the way you handled that. Okay, you said something to the people who were being not nice to the new people. Okay, and I'm sure you waited till the right moment to have that conversation with them. One thing you don't want to do in a situation like that is confront the bully while it's taking place. The reason being, it adds fuel to the fire. You could actually escalate the situation. But when the opportunity presents itself and you feel up to it, like in your situation, you said something to them, okay? At the very least, maybe you can enlighten them just a little bit, okay?
We're going to fight each other for the mic. I just want to say one thing, and part of the reason why we do this is that we want to educate you and let you know, maybe change the way you think about behavior that you see. So now, when you see behavior that's bullying, you can identify it as bullying. And one thing I find is that senior center directors like Jessica, like, you don't have to do things by yourself. You can work with the senior center or with other people here and say, you know, I see this going on, is there anything we can do about it? And I'm sure that she'd be more than willing to discuss that and make the situation better. Because it's better for some people, it's better for everybody, okay? Any other questions? Because otherwise we're over time. Okay, well, thank you very much.